Hello. I wanted to make this video um, to introduce myself and my work and this particular uh, 8-week course program, uh, particularly to introduce it to people who are using the services of MYMY and working with MYMY and offering this, people who are giving up their time and volunteering with MYMY, staff and the kind of community of people who come into the shop in Castlewellan and use our various services, particularly our core counselling service. So my hope is that I can give an impression over these next few minutes of this program, and that if you get enough of an impression of it, or maybe a little bit of me, that might help you just to sense for yourself whether this is something you might like to join and participate in, whether the timing feels good for you. And if so, then the next step is probably to make contact with me and we can chat about it further. So I am, sorry, something coming up on my screen. I'm Deirdre McKibben. I am the trainer who's been offering these courses with MYMY over a few years. We have funding for a few more years, which is excellent. So I'm qualified as a mindfulness trainer and a member of the Mindfulness Teachers Association of Ireland. I'm also an accredited counsellor and psychotherapist in private practice. And I'm offering a particular 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course with MYMY. And the particular course that I'm offering at the moment is it's called Finding Peace in a Frantic World. So mindfulness, finding peace in a frantic world. This is the book that accompanies this. And if you look up franticworld.com, the glare from the light, if you look up franticworld.com, you'll also find the website with lots of information about this and some other courses. So keeping this just simple, I want to describe a tiny taster of what mindfulness is. I might do my best, describe a little bit about the 8 weeks, and yeah, maybe about who might find this useful at this time. Mindfulness, I mean, it's one of those words that's out there a lot. I don't know how well understood it is. I want to kind of bring it down to earth, keep it ordinary. I think everybody has moments when they feel really mindful. And many of us, particularly somehow in the modern world, many of us seem to have a lot of time when we get lost in other states, when you could say we're a bit mindless. And that's fine. It's human, it's ordinary, that's me, that's you. So mindless, if I describe that, would just be maybe you're caught up in busyness or you're caught up in your mind. So in a sense, you're not aware of where you are, what's going on. You're kind of just lost in thoughts or lost in a lot of just autopilot. When we're like that, we often don't have much sense of connection with our environment, or even really with what's going on inside us. There's not an awful lot of just being aware of what's happening. And we all do this quite a lot of the time. But there's a lot of evidence to show that when we spend an awful lot of time in autopilot or in this state when we're not really present to our experience, mindless, but this has some real downsides. And for some of us, particularly when we're in that place, been a wee bit gone off into our mind and our automatic kind of patterns of thought and reaction. And for some of us, there are places when we go into like just worry. And recovering from being a chronic worrier. Yeah, it's part of how I got interested in all this stuff. So worry, negative mood or thoughts, or even just always planning the future, or sometimes just going over and over something that happened. These kind of things can be there. So on the other hand, to be mindful is, and we all have moments like this, is when something, so if a natural moment like that arose, it might be you're caught in your usual patterns, and for some reason you maybe pick up a cup of tea, and for a moment or two, all of that feels good, falls away, and you're just enjoying your cup of tea. And I take a deep breath, even as I describe it often, when you sense a little bit of a pause in that activity of just being lost in automatic patterns. You lift your cup of tea, you might, in that moment, feel a bit more connection with the room you're in, or maybe the view out the window, or your cat that's at your feet. Cats or animals are great for bringing us into a bit more presence, a bit more mindfulness. In that same moment, you might sense a little bit more contact with the fact that you're also a body, you're not just lost in thoughts. You feel yourself here, maybe come into more sense of the sights and sounds around you. And the flavor of this wasn't a setup. I actually almost always have a cup of tea beside me. Maybe you then notice that experience. And in some way you're shifting into just being a wee bit more here and a bit more in contact with just what's right in front of you, a wee bit more mindful. You might notice your breath. And these moments often feel kind of meaningful, or a bit of a breathing space, or a moment when you we like them. We like to be aware, to come back into a wee bit more presence. And they can happen naturally. And the thing is, these can feel a bit rare. And so we can train, just as you might train yourself to get a little bit more fit, or you might train yourself, something like to learn a musical instrument. We can really, just very deliberately and patiently and with intention, slowly over, like anything you learn, just repeat, repeat, repeat. We can teach our attention to have much more of a tendency, go, 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 off, off, for it to kind of come back and to come into connection with ourselves, our present moment experience, to particularly orient our attention to really take in and notice and register that which is right here, often very ordinary, very simple, but which feels for our system a bit nourishing, a bit settling. Maybe it's the breath, maybe it's the tea, maybe it's mindfulness with your cat. And as we can, and there's a real component of this practice that's coming into the present, practicing doing that through short recordings, maybe 15 minutes twice a day. That's too much, do it once a day, be realistic. But like it's training our minds, our attention to come into the present moment. And as we come into connection with ourselves, to bring a lot of supportive, kind of kindly, friendly attitude to where we find ourselves and to our sense of ourselves. There's a lot of kindness in it, because there's a lot of tendency to be harsh. So mindfulness is what happens and what arises for us when we bring our attention into the present moment, bring our attention with curiosity and kindness just to the way things are right in this moment. What's around us, and then what's within us, which will be thoughts and feelings, all that comes and goes in any ordinary human kind of experience. So the course is a kind of structured one across 8 mornings. It's about 2 hours. And each week you'll be invited to do, and really, really encouraged to do your best in whatever way fits for you, to do this daily or almost daily practice. And there are recordings, they're on YouTube. There's a handy actually kind of smartphone app, that's your thing. The book has a CD at the back with them. And that they are, for example, the first week will be a 10 minutes awareness of body and breath. And I'm going to send a link to that with this talk so that you can sample it. And some recordings, it'll be my voice as well. And mostly the format of the week is we come together as a group. They're currently online on Zoom. Sorry, we can't do it in person yet. I'm very much looking forward to going back to that. But I work really hard to create an atmosphere that feels like as close to showing up in the church hall or the sports centre and coming together. We arrive in early and we have cups of tea, and you're invited to find a comfortable space and make it like, you know, a really nice sort of nurturing experience, because we need that, yeah. And I put in a lot of effort to structure it in a way that allows a great group to have their chit chat and their, you know, makes it friendly and sociable and fun. You know, that this is not work just because there's a book. I try and call our book our friend. It's full of stories about Mary, who's, who's really struggling with just dead ordinary things. It's very kind of based on ordinary lives. And but most mornings we will start with, after we've said hi, shared a cup of tea, we'll start with a practice, 20 or 30 minutes, and that will just be working with your attention. So maybe that's breath and body. Sometimes it's a movement practice, bringing the attention through the experience of the inside of the body, called interoception. So it's like sensing into your hands, sensing into your arms. And we are all the time, we're actually developing new neural pathways and growing and changing the actual activity, brain activity, towards one that for many people seems more helpful, builds our capacity to handle the ups and downs in life and still stay resilient, and kind of here, okay enough. Those are ability to stay in a regulated state, okay, not overwhelmed, and builds our relationship, I think, with ourselves and with our inner life. It's so often the pattern that when we have a moment when we're feeling a bit down, some stressed, anxious, that we immediately kind of are really harsh and judging of ourselves. So a core piece of the course is kind of exploring that and rediscovering that we all struggle with states and flux of mood and some difficult patterns of thinking, and that there are ways of really just befriending that, so that we can allow that to come and go within us and not get lost in it and not fuel it further and further. That can be helpful. So most mornings we practice together, then we come together in a bit of conversation. How was that? What did you notice? Yeah, your mind kept getting pulled into your worry about, how can we practice with that? How can we normalize that and realize as humans we all have that, and what might be helpful as you practice with that kind of thing. So we discuss that, and then each week there'll tend to be a little bit of input from me around what creates stress for us humans. There's what gets called maybe psychoeducation, and then chance to go into small groups and chat about how you're getting on or not trying to practice between sessions, because we struggle, don't we? We've got full lives, or we put things off, all those human things that happen too. Every group's different, but often my sense is that the group really can feel like they really value each other's, like going through it with a group. They really feel that it is a supportive environment, and as kind of a special experience in that way. I'm available at the end of each session or between sessions if something's coming up for people, so that support is there. And I really think it's important to spend some time, chatting with me beforehand, just to check the time is right. Trying to learn a new skill if we're going through a really rocky period, a lot of change, if we're in a wee bit of sort of overwhelm, and everyone has those spells. Trying to learn a new skill may not be the most helpful. So maybe something else might be more supportive, and then a few months later, the time might be right to come into our next program. And So yeah, so if this is of interest and you listen to the practice and you want to explore this further, you can certainly go on the website franticworld.com. You might find in MYMY one of these books knocking around. I'm hoping we start placing them around, or get one of these for yourself. It's maybe £11. I've been saying 10 for a long time. I suspect it's a bit more now. And or the next step would be to make contact with me. My contact details will accompany this link, and we can just chat about it, find out about the next course. We run them multiple times a year, and my wish is just to empower and support people to know what this is and decide for themselves, like yes or no, or this is not yet. And that for you to really listen to your own knowing about whether you think something like this might be helpful, or whether you're kind of in the right place right now to kind of reach out and give this a go. And when the timing is right and we step into doing a wee piece of learning something new, sport, do something, and if the timing's right and we feel that kind of real impulse in us to, now, I find that people really find the course most helpful. I don't want to oversell anything. Life is complex and our difficulties can be complex, and there are no silver bullets. Not everybody finds mindfulness practices of use. Some people don't like them. But many people, when we've given a bit of a support and guidance to get started in a very simple way, can find this a really useful resource. And not just a resource or a tool. There's like behind it maybe a certain spirit or attitude or approach to life that is, life is a mixture. There are really great bits and good bits, and there are lots of difficult bits, and nobody escapes that. We're all in that kind of together, that mixture. But there are ways of developing an approach to life and an ability to be able to move with the ups and downs of a day, of a life, in a way that supports ourselves well and takes in and appreciates and gets nourished by the good bits and the ordinary bits, and doesn't get swept away or lost or entangled by the challenges. By the challenges. So thank you for your time. I'm hoping this isn't far too long. I could talk about this stuff all day. And I'm really happy to talk with anyone with any questions to follow up after this.